Great careers are not accidents, they're journeys built through clarity and intent. In every industry, there are such journeys that reveal true leadership, sacrifice, risk, and purpose. I'm Dirk Horn, and this is The Pitch and the Catch, where we dive into choices, changes, and the careers they create. Welcome. Today, we're speaking with a leader who stepped into one of the most challenging roles in business, taking over a company in the midst of a turnaround while maintaining full operational continuity. Andy Zaske is the Vice President of the Americas for BW Water, leading a 35-year-old business that was undergoing significant operational and organizational pressure at the time of its acquisition. In less than a year, Andy navigated significant team turnover and took on the challenge of rebuilding operations, culture, and confidence all at the same time. What makes Andy's story especially compelling is that his path to the role. He started as an engineer, became a salesperson, then a sales leader, and now, for the first time, he's accountable for the entire business. Along the way, Andy has learned a truth that every leader eventually confronts, that being the hardest part of running a business isn't the numbers, but the people. Andy describes his current situation as changing the tires on a car while driving 70 miles an hour. I remember this from our brief. In this conversation, we'll explore what it really takes to lead through uncertainty, rebuild belief, and grow a business when there's no playbook, only pressure, people, and decisions that matter. Welcome to the pitch and the catch, Andy. It's great to have you on the show.
Dirk, it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to our conversation.
Me too, Andy. I have so many questions, and I'd suggest we'll get right into the most important question of the day for me is water. You've been in the water industry for 30 years. Tell me everything about water that we need to know.
How long do we have?
We have time. This water is important.
I tell you, it's one of the things that's interesting. The more you know about a topic, the deeper you go, the more questions you have. I studied environmental engineering, so I always had an interest in water modeling and things. And I think what I found is that it's in every single industry. That's what's been so exciting about being in the water side of the business. You touch every single sort of factory I've walked through and been a part of helping them and their products and their operation. And then the fact is, people take water for granted.
For granted,
most of them, right? You open the tap and water comes out. You drink it, not giving as much thought about what goes into getting that water to you, as well as the quality that's there and the price, the growing price of creating that quality for people.
So, what's the machine behind me opening the tap? And just in rough steps.
Yeah, it varies greatly, and that's what's interesting about water. You can solve every problem probably 10 different ways.
Yeah, it's
depending
true.
on your personal preference and where you're at. But the source is what you start with. Where is the water coming from? Is it a river? Is it a lake? Is it a well? The sea? Wastewater is growing, and as a water source, people taking municipal wastewater and treating that, and then you figure out what contaminants are there, what quality you need, and then you put together a process flow diagram to get to the quality that you need from where you're at, in hopefully both a cost-effective way, capital-wise, as well as operationally.
But now we have that out of the way. Water. I think what I always try to do on the pitch and the catch is connect people with everyone's everyday life, because we have these complicated jobs that sometimes are very hard to explain to other people. But when it's, for example, you're baking pizza, we had frozen peas on the show. We had, electricity from solar, and now we have water. I think there's so many aspects that in industrial jobs where we do a service to communities or to everyday life. And I think water, especially, as you said, we take it for granted. But
Absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good. That's
Good.
exciting. Yeah, no, as I said, we have this out of the way. And second thing that people that I'm always interested before we go into more intricate details is to understand someone a little bit better. So you started as an engineer. I remember that. Looked at your resume, but you went over to the sales side of things.
Dark side. Yeah, I went to the dark side. Yeah.
We have something to talk about. That is interesting. It's not here. Come on, it's the happy side, isn't it? Imagine a salesperson coming in with like as a Darth Vader type. You want to be the Luke Skywalker when you come in. No, even better,
There,
Han Solo.
Han Solo. Yeah.
He was the Star
Absolutely.
Wars reference.
All right, very good. I started, my parents were teachers, they're educators, and then my dad turned into a salesman, and we would go and on some of his sales and trade show excursions and things. And I think, I always had a science fascination, so I went into
Yes.
science. And then I had done the engineering job for 6 or 8 months, and they said, "Hey, you're an engineer and you actually can talk to people. Do you want to go into sales?" And so
I get to laugh.
I said, "Is there money in it?" They said, "Oh yeah, you can make more money." I said, "Well, okay, I'm interested." And that was where it started. And I think when in technical sales, especially if you can connect a technical person with an engineering background or science background with commercial sensitivity, someone that can relate to people, that magic can happen there. So it's hard to find those people.
I agree 100%. I like this. See, I grew up as a professional in the industry. I grew up working with and for engineers. I like the way you put it. You're an engineer, but you can actually talk to people.
And they talk about, you can always tell depending on where the engineer's eyes are. Do they look, kind of close to your nose, or do they look at your belt buckle? So, engineers are down, or if they kind of come up a little bit, then they could be a salesperson. So,
Yeah, and they get tangled up in the details pretty fast because, I mean, the passion is around understanding things, how things work, and not necessarily selling them. So that's what does a salesperson sell when you're in the water business? Because you're not selling water bottles apparently. So what are you selling?
yeah, I'm selling, a treatment capability, right? So
Treatment capability.
people's jobs are potentially at risk. You're going to help them create, the water that they need at a price point that they think the business can tolerate and with the quality that they need. And so you come in and several others will, and you'll describe why your approach is better. And you have to instill confidence, and then you have to back that up. And so there's a bit of an engineering aspect to creating the solution. And you have to have, I call it commercial viability. It has to be commercially viable. So not only does it technically have to work, because anyone can create a solution that works technically, but you have to be able to sell that and compete with the marketplace. And so, finding your way to this commercial viability is a pretty key piece.
So in the water treatment space, and when we think of customers, are these usually communities or also industrial companies or private
Um,
sector?
and yeah, we do a lot with semiconductor facilities, power plants, beverage companies, food wastewater, mining water,
Mhm.
oil and gas has water. Anyone that's creating power with steam, and then you go to drinking water with municipalities and things too.
And I think I have an idea. I just wanted to ask, not everybody has that. So when a semiconductor company or an oil and gas or a mining company, when they use water, they're obliged to return it to the environment in at least the same state as they've taken it from, or even better. Is that the reason? Or why would they do water treatment? Because water treatment costs money. They don't want to spend money.
No, as a business, you want to reduce the amount of
Yeah.
money you spend and
Yes.
maximize what you make, right? So they treat it sometimes because the water they need to do the process they're doing isn't available, right? So they have to
So
improve it.
incoming because they need
Incoming.
cleaner water. Yes.
So they'll do that sometimes. So like a mine needs a certain amount of water. There's a lot of chemistry in mining, which is interesting. You take the stone out and then you're melting, basically chemically melting what you don't want away. So you need water to mix with that. As you said, you also have to treat the effluent, what's coming out of the facility. And so there's a lot of the project we're doing in Peru on the top of a mountain is about acid mine drainage, and the mining company there is doing a good job of investing to treat the water that's going to come off of the mountain there for almost in perpetuity, basically, from the gold mining that they've done there. So,
Because downstream, there's people who want to drink that water.
right, it's going to end up right in someone's village, right, washing through and or drinking that or using it for agriculture or something. Yeah.
Yes. Um, See, that's another side of water we even haven't touched in the beginning. It's like we talked about the tap water, but there's this whole water is an entire industry if you want to look at it like this.
And that's where
Because
I've spent most of my time is on the industrial side, some on municipal, but yeah.
it is, I don't have the in-depth knowledge regarding water. I did some research, of course, before we talked, but
Yeah.
I do remember that the manufacturing of one car requires one swimming pool of water. I don't know if that holds true, but that's something that I worked in the automotive adjacent industry, and they used to say that. That's a lot
Yeah,
of water.
it is. with the E-coat on the primary frame of the automobile, that's one of the key areas. You coat it with, you go through a dip station and then you come up and they have a spot-free rinse station that rinses the paint afterwards. And so you end up with a bunch of sort of paint solids and water mixed together that then they try to separate and reuse as best they can. That's one application in automotive anyway. So
And
yeah,
that
it's fascinating.
it's fascinating. That water has to come in at a certain level of quality because, I mean, you can't have stuff swimming in that water, and it has to leave the facility probably in a certain quality. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, even think about your local car wash, right? You go through and there's the spot-free rinse. Well, they're pulling all the ions and any of the suspended material out of the water to create that spot-free rinse water for you. So it, it touches all sorts of both common as well as sort of exotic applications.
I do remember, so my former employer, a pharmaceutical company in Switzerland, they were cooling the buildings because in Switzerland, air condition is not allowed. So you can't have air condition in any kind of building unless you need to cool down animals. It sounds a bit weird. Animal hospitals, but no,
Animals before people.
we always made the joke on the fifth floor were the animals. Actually, they had much better conditions than we had. But I mean, who wants to be a testing animal? I think
Right.
we were still fine. We were having the water run through the ceiling of the buildings, and it cools down the building. It keeps the building about 5 degrees below the outside in lieu of an air condition. And we were always, I mean, of course, we were making life saving drugs, which is a source of pride. But then also we were returning that water cleaner into the river than we've actually taken it out of the river, which I think was always very cool.
Great. Yeah,
That
very
was
good.
now, but as you can realize, Andy, I'm out of my scientific depth with you now. So I have to drag you. I have to drag you into my space.
All right, very good.
So you've had this amazing career, and you still have the amazing career. So you from a sales, as I said in the introduction, from an engineer to a sales engineer to a salesperson to someone who leads sales. And now you find yourself, and we've discussed this real brief when you were at the airport, at the end of the food chain. So I think you had an exciting switch early in the year.
I did.
How does it, and I think you had exciting switches before that, but let's do the most recent one.
Very good.
What is No, I know there is, but I don't want to ask a naive question, but from your perspective, what is the huge difference between part of a team running the company and being the head of the team running?
Stress, a lot of I mean,
Mhm.
it's the responsibility. I think you have to be able to relate and bridge to multiple disciplines, right? And try to keep some balance. We each have natural preferences. If you grew up in finance, you have a natural tendency to focus on numbers. If you grew up in the operations side, building things, that's where your focus is. Mine is on sales and some. My challenge has been to try and balance my natural tendency to think about customers and new business with the operational pieces of making sure cash flow is okay and that we're getting, invoicing done and that we have an operations team that's functioning and running to schedule, interfacing with clients on not only the sales side but on the execution side as well. We're a bit more of a project company, and so as we execute these projects, there's all sorts of twists and turns through the life of a project that you and your team have to navigate.
Yes. And that might be just taking a half a step back. So the company that you lead is BW Water. So where does BW Water sit in that in that water industry? Because you said projects. I mean, my when I opened the tap, that's not a project. That's a continuously running process.
Right.
So what does BW Water do as a business? What's the business model?
So if you were thinking about opening that tap in 3 years, we would be the ones that we'd come and talk with you about where's your water, what kind of quality do you need, and then we would put a treatment plan together, and then we would quote that to you, and then we'd execute that project. Everything from buying all the pieces to potentially doing installation and getting it started up and operational for you. And so there are other technology providers, people that make a technology product, a product itself. We're more of a project system integration piece. So we'll buy best available technology, put together a system or solution for the customer. And sometimes that's partnering with engineering companies. Sometimes that's partnering with the industry itself, the industrial client. Sometimes it's all us and an engineering company, a client, and even another contractor of some sort. So
So does it end? I think you answered this, but does it end when you give them the plan how it's being done, or do you help ordering the parts and make sure it's being installed?
No, we will order the parts. We'll make sure the parts are delivered to site. We'll help them with the installation of that, and then help them get it started up and operational. And then typically we'll turn it over to the client after startup. Sometimes we stay on and we'll operate the plant for them as well.
Okay. So how's the typical duration of a project? Average size?
18 months to 3 years, something like that. So depending on the size of it and the complexity.
Okay. When I don't know, Intel, whoever, TSMC, there's so many in
All right.
Scottsdale, when they need water treatment, they basically get in touch with you, but in the planning phase of the new site.
That's the hope. Sometimes you get involved after they've made some decisions. Usually you get one or two people that have that contact, and then they'll go out for bid typically. So they'll invite other people to come in and bid on the project with you. And there's usually a general contractor putting the entire building together, and then we're just one piece of that. We don't usually touch the building or the civil works of an application.
Um, as I said, I needed to take a half step back. I have forgot about asking it. Let's take a full step forward. Back into the end of the food chain conversation that I wanted to have with you. So the
Yeah.
coming in as the commercial leader, the first word that came to your mind was stress. And then of course came all the other things. And you said, of course, it comes naturally to you to think of customers because that's what you've done for so long. What are the things that you had to learn this year? Because when I mean, you said cash flow. You mentioned all the operations, all the beautiful things. Where was your biggest learning curve from a technical knowledge perspective?
From a technical knowledge, I guess
As a
was
leader, as yeah,
as a
so
leader. Yeah. I read Good to Great 20 years ago, whatever.
ah, there it is.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. I came back to that. One of the first chapters he has is getting the right people on the bus, right, and the
Hmm.
right and the wrong people off the bus,
Yes.
and that's easy to say, but in reality, then, and this is my driving at 70 miles an hour, changing wheels on the car. I think you can't take all the wheels off at once and make all those changes. You sort of have to work your way through critical spots depending where you're at, and then you have to give some people time and you try to coach. The best case scenario is you help that person improve, or you move them into a different role that better suits them. We only have 25 or 30 people here in the U.S., so there's not a lot of other roles in a project business like this. So it's been tough decisions, to work through who stays, who goes, who's new. You have to make, good decisions about that. Sometimes I've lost sight of that, and I focus too much on, this new application, or I kind of dive into the weeds. And so, one of the hardest things for me has been to try and pull back, have a little bit of trust, and then allow your team to uh, to pick up the day to day. Right? You can still be aware. People can help keep you informed, but in terms of making those day-to-day decisions, the more you can get the right people in place, the greater your trust becomes, and must become to be successful with those people taking on that responsibilities.
Yeah, it
I'll,
is.
I'll pause there. Yeah.
No, no, no. There's this interesting transition in the leader's life, and it can happen at any point. So what is cause a career is because we're good technical experts. We have learning agility. We look pretty when we do whatever the reasons are.
Right.
But we're always being promoted because we have things under control and we delivered a certain result. And then there comes this moment where we're promoting to a space where we have to do the opposite of being success, of former success. Former success was control and technical abilities. And then comes this place almost all of a sudden where everybody says, no, no, you have to pull back and let others do the job. But where basically there's nothing that prepares us for that. There's no training where you're being taught, oh, this is exactly how you pull back and this is how you place trust in people. What was how I really mean technically, how did you navigate for these things? Where did you find uh did you have people you talked to? Maybe you found another Jim Collins book that you read because my
I've
book
got
wasn't out that.
right there. You go, Dirk. I've found, yeah, I've read a lot of different books. I've listened to different podcasts. It is difficult to find, that
It
mentor
is.
that,
Yeah.
because everything gets kind of specialized and the situations are unique and everyone's time is somewhat limited. Um, you know, I I've tried to balance myself with folks, staying connected, having conversations, right? So you got to keep talking to your employees. I have this philosophy of a 90-day plan with people, and
Yep.
so look at things from a quarterly perspective. And so I've asked, some of my key folks, what are you going to do in the next 90 days? Write it down. Let's have a
Mm.
conversation. Let's review that. And so that gives you some sense of where they're heading, right? And what they're working on, what the priorities are, allows you to step back and think about the big picture, not just what you have to get done this week. And I think I find the 90 days is a nice time period because it's not too short, but it's not too long. And so you can kind of take on a few worthwhile tasks, and yet you don't have to all get them done, tomorrow or something. So, and then you can have a good conversation in 90 days. How did you do against that, right? Did you balance your proactive with your reactive?
Yeah, it's a nice way to tactically keep control, but not having interfere with the day to day.
Right. This is your stepping back, right? And so
Yeah,
you're giving
it's
giving them
very good.
space.
Yeah.
So
Um, I never heard it like this. See, I'm still collecting, and I was in that situation too when reached that level. That what are people actually doing to learn how to pull back? And I think that's a neat little. Don't get me wrong, it's a good, not little, but it's a neat little
it's
technique.
a trick, a little trick.
It's a trick. Yeah, no, yeah. But here's the thing. It's the first time I hear of this in the way you presented it, but there is no management book that tells you how to do it. As you said, everything's very specific. No, I like
And
this.
everyone's situation is a little bit unique. So
Yeah,
yeah,
only the situation that you find yourself in a position where you need to entirely work through others is not unique. This is part of, right?
sure. Right. And yeah, and I've struggled with the how do you help those folks feel like you're doing your part, right? It can't
Yes.
just be managing and report up to me. There's work to be done. So the pullback is not the idea that everyone else does the work and you just sort of are watching over the top. There's certainly work to be done. It's different kind of work. And so how do you help them feel good about the work you're doing as well as helping encourage them on the work they're doing? So,
So, and because you've mentioned the right people on the bus, what was your main criteria? Because you were in a state of change. You had to figure out cash flow, incoming orders, and everything. What was the most important aspects about the first group of people that you chose to be the ones that you trust?
I didn't know my predecessor, but what I've been told is that he was quite controlling, right? He wanted to be in the mix of everything. And so I came into a group of people that were used to that sort of management style,
Yeah, yeah,
micromanagement, and they struggled. I'm a remote. And my team, most of them are down in Tampa, and my wife told me I could move there, but she's going to stay in Minnesota. So I
it's funny.
come back here, on the weekends. But when you're kind of remote and not in there every day, you can't be a micromanager. And one of the hardest things to me has been either getting people that are comfortable without micromanagement, encouraging those people, or trying to convince people that have been micromanaged how to step back from that and to make some decisions and then communicate that. It's not in a vacuum, but have some more confidence. And so I think it's been a matter of finding the right people, some building confidence with the people that are there, encouragement, and once they've made some of those steps and leaps, and staying connected with them
Yes, and because you mentioned Jim Collins. This, I think, Good to Great is one of the best-selling business books of all time.
all time. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, the first 90 days is one too, is another one of those because you mentioned 90 days, and there's a few, but the third one is, oh no, that's my train of thought. The 90 days.
Threw you off.
It's kind of, I was like into your first 90 days. No, the third one is here. It comes back again. The trusted advisor, which is one that, and the trusted advisor has something, is they call it the trust formula. Have you ever seen this?
I don't know if I have. I've heard trusted advisor, but I don't know if I've seen the formula.
Probably a book I quote every day. I wish I had written this book or whatever. It doesn't. No, but the genius. So they said how to create trust, and that's I use it in work with teams every day, and I'm just mentioning it here because a lot of these things that you were talking about are part of the trust equation. Now, trust equation is credibility. So someone has a certain kind of education, like he or she is an engineer, and so credibility, they know what they're doing. Reliability is they walk the talk. If they say they do something, they actually do it. So it is reliable. And the third part is intimacy. Intimacy as to there is an active relationship that, we talk to each other, we're on the phone, we have a regular report. So if these three things are in place, trust is being built. And the one thing that can destroy the trust is self orientation. So it's like I'm only doing it for, I don't know, doing it for myself. I never really cared about you. It's just to optimize myself. That is, and you've just said, so credibility is they know what they're doing. Reliability, they do the work that we've discussed. And I think you put a little bit of cadence into the reliability thing with the 90 days
right?
because that gives you
Yeah,
the reliability.
alignment,
And then you just said, and staying in touch with them. That's the intimacy. So interesting enough, that's the three building blocks of trust.
perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just I
I
love that
know
book.
that. Which one is that? Is that
It's the
which book is
three
that?
the trusted advisor.
Ah, okay.
That's
Trusted advisor. All right, we'll take that
that
on.
is actually some books like the Jim Collins books and others. They have a real contribution to our language, which I think is always amazing. Sorry, now I've done the talking. You should be doing the talking.
It's all right. It's all about
But
sharing. Yeah.
yeah, it's all about sharing. So that was the first aspect is about, so let's say Jim Collins people on the bus. The actual, and I don't, I'm careful with the word turnaround. I don't know. We put it in the intro and you said that we can call it a turnaround. But let's say you had to touch a couple of things. So from moving pieces that you've had to touch. So how do you stabilize a business? The one thing is the people, but what other aspects were there in these?
Yeah. So the business here in the Americas was acquired by a company out of Asia, headquartered in Singapore. A much larger portion of our business in Asia.
Uh-huh.
I had the chance to go over there a couple times with the teams. And part of what I've done is try to bring some of the new industries and some of the new technologies and applications over to us and then lean into some of the capability from those other areas. And as we've done that, we've started to open up some new markets, we've started to find new customers, and you start to build a new culture. But you had to agree that it wasn't working the way it was, and then get people that were open to the idea that, hey, we could learn from those other folks in Asia, we could adapt some of this, and then go explore some of these new markets. And so now, once you find some new markets and customers, you have to figure out how to satisfy them and fulfill on that. So that's the next piece. So that you're never done, right, in business. So it's just on to the next challenge. So as we find some new opportunities and have some success, then building onto the team, getting the right people with the capabilities to execute on that, or just even navigating a global business and how do you interact with those other regional players and find a good path to execution. They get something, you get something, and together you grow the whole
And
business.
yeah, and that is so. Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. So the new ideas, even technologically, that potentially lead to new opportunities.
New
So that
markets
is
too,
new markets. And just for new markets can be, so we're in the market for mining, but we have a technology that works in,
semiconductor,
yeah,
right?
semiconductor. And then we can approach a completely different market because we know water and now we have technology to, I don't know, get it as clean and as fast as you need it, for example.
And sometimes it's about having the right technical experts, right? So you can either go find those experts and hire
Mm.
them, or you can leverage expertise globally. And so that we've got some seawater desalination expertise here. We have some semiconductor expertise in Germany. We've got some drinking water expertise in Asia. And it's easy to say, right? Oh, let's just all share and we'll figure out, and everyone will do those. And it's very hard to
It's
pull
hard.
off,
That's hard because, yeah, because you need relevance for the individual. Why should I be sharing this?
right? The competitors are different in different markets. The approach to the market sometimes is different. Even the way customers interact with you can be different. And time zones, language, even units, right? Metric versus English units, and all the rest of it. So
Yeah, that's
you
another
know,
thing.
and it's liters here, it's gallons here, it's
Oh my gosh. And the British gallon is different than the US gallon.
yes, yes. There's a funny story, but yeah, that's very true.
I'm still trying to decode your transformation experiences. So we have the people piece, then you have the, let's say, new piece, new ideas, new opportunities, new markets. Of course, we have to deliver. How about the customer relationship piece? And that comes natural to you. Did you need to touch this? Was everything there that you expected, or what happened here?
Yeah, that's been a journey as well. In Asia, working for an Asian company, marketing is quite different there, right? And even the sales experience is quite different. You
Hmm.
you rely more on people.
Yep.
things are a little more spread out and you can go country by country. Here, the United States is so big and so vast and so many different opportunities that you do need to create a brand for yourself. And so we've actually struggled internally with not really even marketing spend. So how do you get your name out? So it's been a lot of lunch and learns. It's been a lot of jumping on airplanes and going to communicate directly with customers to introduce yourself. In most cases, most industries, unless you have some breakthrough technology, they're already being serviced by someone else. So how do you convince them you've got something more to add,
Yeah.
or that they should include you? So
Now, if you have an answer here, I think that answer is worth a lot of money. How do you?
well, I think but in every space there's opportunity. They
Mhm.
may be serviced, but those people may be content. They may be complacent. They may be old. They may have gotten acquired and be large. In our case, we've just tried to be very responsive, very engaging, very persistent, and in front of people. Which coming out of the pandemic hasn't always been the most popular thing, but traveling, getting in front of those folks, making a personal connection, and then making sure that you can follow up and reliably deliver and communicate effectively with people. Those have been ways that we've created some differentiation with some really large companies in the water space that have done a lot of acquisitions over the last few decades.
And I think just speaking with the trusted advisor, and then your credibility comes in, I assume, because you've been in water for 30 years.
So yeah, I did hire a new college graduate, and she's been great, and she's learning as an engineer. But I also have a guy who came out of the Middle East, been doing it for 40 years, and you need to go find some of that talent that gives you credibility, and now it's the business can kind of leverage the people that are supporting it, right? So
Yeah, yeah, it's a story that builds up over time, right? Because it's
right.
um so so we've exchanged three, and I don't know if we have a fourth one. So we have your car, we're going 70 miles an hour. We've exchanged three tires. The right people on the bus was tire number one. Bringing in new impulses, I'd say, is tire number two. Tire number three is creating a brand for yourself. What's tire number four this year that you had to exchange? I don't know if there's, or maybe you only needed to change three tires.
I think part of it has just been confidence within the business. So the self-respect, the belief, you know um, we've had challenges. We're in a capital intensive environment.
Yes,
Cash flow is challenging, and momentum. You only win a couple deals a year that are of significance.
yes.
Establishing, and then so we have some people that have been with us 25 years, and then we have some people who've been with us for 3 months, right? And so how do you help them all feel good about the direction that we're going? So I've done a lot with monthly. I started quarterly, but it actually we've done it almost monthly town hall meetings, just trying to be very transparent with people. Here's where we're at. Here's what's going on. Here's where we're heading. Here's the challenges we're working through. Here's some successes, some recognition of people. These people went above and beyond.
Mm.
We've done some awards. Um, I think in the midst of any business, and every business is going to go through ups and downs, and there's always something you can be struggling with, but there's almost always something you can celebrate too. And so I think part of the challenge for a leader is find those celebration opportunities. It's not just for that employee; it's for everyone to feel good about the business, to change their attitude, and to help them build confidence. So then that flows through everything, right? Their day-to-day work, the interfacing with vendors and customers and everything else. So
So you're basically building a culture.
yeah. All right. So you say it in 3 words, and I took 3 minutes, but
It's
yeah,
okay.
you're right.
I had 3 minutes to think.
Yeah, the culture piece is probably the fourth wheel, if that's been important, and is ongoing for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I hope I didn't bring you to talking about culture. I felt like that came organically because it's one of my main talking points wherever I am is that culture is or should be part of the business case. If people know what they're doing, if they speak the same language, if they talk to each other, and if they talk to the customer in the right way, this actually is worth money.
Yeah, absolutely, and they all have to be aligned, especially with today remote employees, operating out of their homes, and maybe 30-40% of our employees are remote. It gets even more challenging to do that, right? This Teams, there's some great virtual tools that assist with that, but it's still not the same as going and having lunch together and stuff. And so
Sorry, I just had to laugh because, the virtual teams getting people to know is like, "Is this your dog that I'm hearing, or is that the neighbor's dog?" No, we've had didn't we have so many funny instances the last couple of years with remote work?
Absolutely. People like, I'm on the phone or yeah, on the computer. Yeah.
Of course, we see the whole tendency of back to work, back to the office. But I feel like in a lot of instances, we will be dealing with a hybrid culture, like as part of something that's very normal. Hybrid, as in remote. Some team members are on site. So, how do you manage that with the hybrid remote people? Do you ask them to come in maybe once a month, or how do you make sure that that idea of everyone breathing the same air becomes a reality? Because you said that's an advantage.
Yeah, culturally is a challenge for sure. I think from a work aspect, there's you trust your managers and your employees, and you check in and you see progress or don't. But from a culture standpoint, it is a challenge. So we've invested in. We invested in sending one of my young employees. She went to Asia for 6 weeks and stayed there. Worked with that team to try and embrace that culture and understand that, so she could bring some of that back with her. So bridging cultural gaps across the world, but also within the country here. I do try to encourage people to, as best we can, support that financially. There's cash implications, but you have to travel and be at our office in Tampa periodically to interface with those folks. And we're wrestling through. Right now, we're 3 days in the office, 2 days at home.
Huh.
We've just mandated that everyone has to be in at least one day the same, so you
Nice.
see
Yeah.
you see everybody. And I
Yes.
don't know if that's quite far enough. We probably will have to go a little further, but I think it's in the US, especially today, finding the right people and holding on to them is still a challenge. If the economy takes it, tanks, then maybe you can be a little more draconian on some of the things. But for us right now in certain geographies, it's hard to find the right people. So, balancing culture creation, effectiveness, and the employees' wishes and desires for their career and their work-life balance is a challenge. So, and we wrestle with that internally too. Our Asia offices are all 5 days a week back in the office, and they're struggling with our decision not to do that at this point. So we'll keep trying to navigate those waters.
Yeah, I think from all the conversations that I had this year, I think you're not alone when it comes to the challenge of finding people at all,
Yeah.
and finding the right people. I know there's I don't know what the unemployment numbers is for 6%, which they say is actually not bad. Even if we don't judge, that's a lot of people. On the other hand, everybody's saying we need more and more qualified people. So you're not the first one to hear this from.
Yeah, that's for sure. And to the prior job, we were a manufacturer, and through the pandemic, we were in. You can't assemble a product if you don't have people there,
No,
and robots get
absolutely
you
not.
only so far, right? So that's the name of the game. So figuring that out, and the tariffs are going to drive even more of that as we have to figure out how do we find some tradespeople and people that are comfortable working in a manufacturing environment, and then pay those people a wage that makes it interesting for them to be there. So these are all really good challenges for us as we go forward.
Yeah, and these are macro challenges. It's not necessarily something you can solve for yourself alone.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, I think it was the mining in Chile. You sent the team member to Asia. They're headquartered in Singapore. So the international portion of it, how does it feel like at the moment when we don't? And there's this political aspect about everything's got to be American, which is fine. And by the way, I'm a fan of. I grew up in Germany. I love manufacturing in the country because I know it keeps decent jobs in a country. So I'm just where I stand from a technical perspective. But now everything being American, and you got to send your people away to learn to do this, to do that. How does it feel at the moment? Is that an issue or a non-issue?
Well, it's fascinating. I grew up always working for a company having manufacturing here in the States.
Yes.
As a product manager for a decade, trying to think about how to bring our products to other parts of the world and set up manufacturing on other continents in Brazil and Germany and Middle East and China. I came to this job a year ago saying, hey, we have a factory in Malaysia. Very, very cost effective, very good quality. Be great to bring that here into the States. And then about a month or two later, the tariffs were announced, and that strategy is a little more challenging now. So I think you can make it work. This business I took over, we used to have manufacturing here. It was owned by a Chinese business that shut that down. I think we'll have to explore whether we bring that back.
Yeah.
Whether that's through an acquisition or through an organic creation. We are, I think Jack Welch said, own the customer, not the factory. I didn't embrace that before. My last two jobs have sort of helped me understand that, yeah, if you can have the customer connection and you can add enough value, and if you can keep your business lean enough, you can probably outsource and partner with people. And so, partnering has been a key topic for me, and will be a key topic going in 2026 for me. Who are the right people that you partner with? How can they add value to you? How can you leverage each other? And if you can own that customer relationship, then you can sort of be in the driver's seat on some things, and then keep your options open, whether it's importing, whether it's outsourcing, whether it's organically creating, the capacity to fulfill that need. And so we've still got a core group of people with product management, procurement, design engineering, and we're going to be growing that core group of people here,
Yeah.
just not bricks and mortar from a assembly at this
Yeah. No, I hear you.
of today.
From a pure technical perspective, as a engineer who understands water, are we preventing better technology to come in because it's too expensive because of potentially tariffs that we just don't buy it because it's being made somewhere else? Because we didn't make, in the United States, I don't know if we lost the culture of manufacturing, but we certainly don't manufacture a lot anymore. So
Right.
now, and I'm just wondering, maybe we get the cheap technology in just because it's cheaper to buy with the tariffs. It's not a political question. It's more like a technical question. Do we still buy cutting edge from other countries in the world, or is that, has this slowed down?
No, I do think, one thing that I've noticed is that the US engineering culture is generally more risk tolerant than Germany, than Japan,
Oh,
than
yeah.
some other parts, right, of
You
the world
mentioned the
where,
two worst ones.
well, I drive a lot of Japanese cars, so there's something to be said for it. But
Yeah.
I I think I think we're generally more open to taking some of those risks, and I don't know if that's our heritage as an
Okay.
upstart
Yeah.
country or what, but I think that invites then new technologies here as much as anywhere. And I think as long as the tariffs are known and are solid and not changing too frequently or too quickly, then business can adapt to that. It's when they change frequently or quickly, then it's hard to then you need time to figure out your alternate delivery method. And most technologies are, if they're good enough, then there's a payback in terms of operating costs. And most of the water treatment equipment operate for 7, 10, 20, 30 years or something like that. So you'll embrace the advantage of that, despite perhaps a little bit higher capex cost to it.
Interesting. Yes. By the way, all of your peers that I'm talking to, all of them say the tariffs, we can deal with them. We just need to have one number that we deal with. And not a changing number. And it's complicated enough because if you get an industrial product in, sometimes there's a few thousand parts that come from all over the world, and it's very hard to get the import codes right. So that's so some of my clients have spent, of course, at least it feels like for them, they spend more time with lawyers figuring out the import codes than actually working on their business. I think that is one of the challenges. So the tariffs we can manage, but everything around it is quite tough.
I concur. And if there's some advance notice and you have time to
Yeah.
plan, that helps you. Like I said, our projects are 18 to 24 months. You put a new tariff on today, the project I'm executing today, I don't necessarily have the opportunity to go back and recoup that from the client at this point.
No. You mentioned 2026. What are your big plans for next year?
Yeah. Well, we have an award for a large project in one of these new markets, so
Think
so we're excited
congrats.
about that. Thank you. And that means we're building a new team. We're expanding in a new geography. At the same time, we want to continue to find the next opportunity and build the overall organization and the culture. And so now we're going to have two significant sites. That culture gets even more challenging as you do that, and a lot of new people, coming into the business. I've been spending a lot of time at those different locations, and I'll continue to do that short term. And then as you build the right people, then you can step back and trust that they're doing some of that, and have your touch points to stay informed instead of having to drive everything yourself. And that's I look forward to that as we've got the right people in place to to allow them to drive the business, and then I can be in a little more of a support function and think more strategically where we want to go in 2027.
Yeah. I smiled because that never happens, Andy.
I can believe, I can I can dream.
Yes. It's because the moment you've filled fixed one thing, there's 7 other things to fix. I think there's like maybe there's a general rule in nature that as a CEO, you always have 7 open topics that you need to I don't know. Maybe that's built in.
Sounds
Um,
like a book, Dirk. I don't know.
maybe that's the next. No, the next book is about something completely else. But if you allow me to say, from what I see, I think you need to build this in, the strategic perspective and where you want to go. You need to build this into the day where you continue to fix things. That makes sense.
Yeah.
There's no state of, oh, no, I finally have time for this and that.
No, you're right. And I think that's one of the things I preach it to my people, 90-day plan, be proactive about certain things such that you've written them down and then you think about them because they won't happen naturally, right? The reactive thing is whatever email pops up or phone call or whatever. And then you feel like, oh, hey, I answered all my emails. I must be done for the day. No, what do you want to accomplish? What are the key initiatives and creating the time for strategy and for thoughtfulness and for personnel. I mean, those are the things that the good leaders do. And as part of that transition that you have to figure out is feeling good about spending time on that, instead of, you know, just whatever issues happening with a current customer or whatever. So those are all
Yes.
important too, but finding a balance. So carving out some piece of time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for next year, why would your people want to get up in the morning and get to work?
Well, I think we will double the business. We doubled the
Ooh,
business this year over last year. We'll probably double it again from a revenue perspective next year. And I think, if you're a part of a business that's growing, we're in a new market, we're adding some good people that they like working with. We just did a little event at Top Golf for the holidays, and it was fun to see. Not everyone's a great golfer, but we all had a good time, hanging out for a couple hours. And those are critical things too around the culture and creating a place where people want to come to work. I hope that we continue to paint a vision on where the business is going and show signs of that so they believe in it.
well, that's a good reason to get up in the morning.
That and get a paycheck. And for me,
Yeah.
it's taking care of 4 kids and, whatever else. So,
Yes. Isn't that's maybe sometimes that's the reason not to get up in the morning. Just
yeah.
because we air this probably in late January or February, so we recorded a couple of weeks ahead. But at the time of the recording, it's 2 days, 3 days before Christmas. So what are you doing for Christmas? So all the families coming together?
Yeah, I have a son who lives in Philadelphia, actually not too far from you. And so he's coming back with his fiance, and then we'll be here, and then we'll go visit family members and do some, just staying here. My wife and I are going to take a night and go to a small little town called Stillwater out on the river with another couple that we hang out with. So just finding little pockets of time with family, and I'll keep a pulse on the business. And as things dial back, there will only be so many people to talk to. So, but it's a good time to kind of reflect on where you've been, where the business is at, catch your breath, for
Yes.
not only yourself, but you want to make sure you're letting your employees catch their breath a little bit too, so they can come back rejuvenated then in, the new year.
Yeah, I've just had the conversation on the pitch and the catch with someone else, and we figured that chief executive officer can also translate to chief energy officer.
Right.
Because
They're
I
trying to
think
keep everyone excited and the
yes,
Energizer Bunny and yeah, right.
yeah, because I think this is one of the main roles as the CEO or MD or whatever the title is, to come in the morning and be upbeat. Even when something went wrong, you're the last one who should stick his head in the sand and said, "Oh, that's it, we're done." And you're the one who has to take a positive spin on things, and then of course help the team to come up with solutions. But it starts with positivity. And
Absolutely.
positivity doesn't come from thin air
Organically. Yeah, right.
organically. You have to have some energy for the positive energy to radiate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
now,
that's probably the biggest thing every day, right? Is stepping up to the plate with that energy and believing, in yourself
believe
and the company and where you're going. And the captain of the ship is to keep things moving forward, whether you're in calm water or in the midst of a storm, and try to keep people looking forward and believing. So yeah, that's been a learning as well. You have to be a certain level of transparency, and yet it has to be colored with optimism, right? With that positive energy to keep people moving.
absolutely, and not just, and then I think that's a difference, and not just the, and I say it without judgment, not just the sales energy, like, oh, in the next quarter, let's fulfill that quarter. You have to convey more meaning. I think this is what people
Yeah.
are looking for when the boss is saying this for the entire company, and more meaning could be, and I like this the way you put it. Number one, everybody likes the business to be healthy. But if you double or triple, they don't care, and they know when it's growing, yeah, that's a fact.
And it's more painful for them, more work. Yeah.
Growing is good. It's exciting to open new markets, because that feels like, we're doing something for our survival in the best positive sense of further existence. And I think the team, if people leave companies, they never leave the company, they leave the boss, or they leave a toxic environment, which is the team. So the team basically the fertile foundation of every performance that you can possibly have.
It's absolutely true. I came into this role, last February. The prior leader had left in November, and it had sort of been left empty for 3 months. I came in, and three people quit the next day. He said, "Is it me?" But there was a void, and people will choose to leave, right? Especially the good ones will have other opportunities. So you got to create a culture. People want to be there, and that starts with the leader, right?
So was this a coincidence that you came in and they quit, or was it like, I'm just waiting for the next guy and tell him that's it? It's just kind of that's kind of three people, because it couldn't have been you. I mean,
Right,
and you're a
right.
nice guy. I wouldn't.
It was I think it was a coincidence that
Yeah,
their other opportunity lined up. But you're right, maybe they wanted to stick it to somebody, but it was a rough way to start, I'll tell you that.
I can imagine.
And
Yeah,
you're never learning unless you're doing something new. And so I think the key here is that challenge yourself, find a challenge, and if you're not stressed a bit and not doing the doggy paddle, keep your head above water a little bit, you're probably not learning. And some people are comfortable and they want to do the same thing over and over. For me, I've always been interested in the next challenge and trying to. That's one reason I took this role was for that opportunity. And so, if you can, take a moment, embrace that, and this time around the holidays is maybe a good time to do that, where you look back and go, "Hey, I did keep my head above water. We did make progress. We moved a little bit down the swim lane, and then come back after it, and I've learned, a tremendous amount. So I keep embracing that, and I want to be a lifelong learner and continue to not only help myself, but help the people around me and figure out how best to do that.
yeah. And I mean, this is our second conversation, but I can only say to every water engineer that's out there, this is an amazing guy to work with. Look him in the eye. Here he is. Everything
I
we've just
appreciate that.
learned creates a lot of trust, I think. And it's impressive to hear what you've accomplished in this year, because I think that from what I hear, and you don't say it in this way, but I think it's been also a tough year, also in terms of the challenges, the amount of work that needed to put in. You don't double the business in a year and change all the four tires just so easily. That's a lot of work.
Absolutely, it's been a lot of work, and I've met a lot of great people. I've had good support along the way,
Yeah.
and I've learned a lot. So that's it's all good. I appreciate the team that's around me now, and the path that we're moving forward on. So
Absolutely. And I feel like I need to talk to you again next year and see if you've doubled the business again.
I'll be curious as well.
Bring some accountability into the whole thing.
I
No.
appreciate that. I do need a little more accountability,
Yeah,
Dirk.
you
So
need a
thanks for
little
that.
bit more accountability. It's not that the people in Singapore have that, expect that already,
Right.
right? That's
Exactly.
actually very funny. It's nice. From his first experience owning full business accountability to rebuilding a culture amid a turnaround to leading a global business through local realities, Andy Zaske shows what it truly means to grow into leadership under pressure. This was and is a challenge that felt like changing all four tires of a car at 70 miles an hour. And we've talked about this. From mastering the technical realities, resetting the culture, bringing in new impulses, to deciding who comes along for the ride, all while the business kept moving. That pressure only intensifies when leading the Americas within an Asia headquartered organization where success depends a lot, not just on execution, but on navigating. Again, we talked about different assumptions, different decision rhythms, and definitions of leadership across borders. Andy's journey reinforces a lesson every leader eventually learns. Strategy matters, numbers matter, but it's people that ultimately determine whether the work succeeds. Andy, thanks a lot for coming on the show. It was a real pleasure to have you.
Dirk, it's been my pleasure as well. I appreciate the opportunity and the conversation. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.